Hi everybody and welcome. My name's Stuart Haden, founder of Storm Beach, specialising in authentic leadership where people are being authentic and tapping into their inner values and applying those externally. I keep myself busy, as you probably know by now, as a coach, facilitator, consultant, author, which we're going to talk about here, and speaker as well. So I want to just introduce really the overall principles concept of my book. And it's been a few months since I published this now, but really I'm still exploring what it really means and how it needs to land with people. So I'm going to do that. And there's loads of other vlogs and videos that I've sent and posted that are around different chapters and individual passages. So here's an introduction to the book as a whole. So it's not about the coach. It is from the lens in coaching of the other person. So it's from the coachee, typically in terms of workplace coaching, or the player or athlete in sport. Okay, it's the person who needs to be ready for coaching. And the book asks this one overarching question is, are you coachable? And if you are, great, but what's the precision to that? How can you be even more responsive and ready for coaching? And if the answer is no, what can you do to even improve that readiness for coaching, that response for coaching? So that's what it's designed to do. There aren't really any other books on the market at the time of shooting this anyway. Most things in terms of the model of coaching at the moment are still with the coach, the mentor, the leader type role, where it suggests that coaching is done to someone else. This is the kind of second paradigm of coaching that I promote, which we're moving towards, where it's like a self-service, one-stop shop, customer-centric, because this is where the customer, because that's who this person is, gets himself ready and leads that coaching. Which takes us to the third level. If you've got the both, and then you've got coaching, where it's not really led by coach or coachee. It's kind of all just goes together simultaneously. But more of that later on. So if I break the book down in three ways. First of all, there's a personal narrative here. So there's hopefully a bit of page turner in terms of some of the stories that I present here about coaching. Some of them are quite personal to me and my observations, and some of the things that happen to me in my life, work, and sport. But there's tools and techniques, resources as well. So on one level, there's the personal narrative, the novel, why would you want to turn the page over, what's happening next, where's this going? And secondly, you've got to be tools, techniques, resources, so that's more like the textbook example. So 2 tracks of learning, if you like, more personal and more textbook-like. The overall book's broken down into 3 parts, which is about possibilities, perception, and performance. So a good coachee, in my view, who is ready and coachable, has coachability, can assess part 1, lots of different possibilities. Part 2 can allow their perception to shift and change. And finally, performance, do something about it. Okay? So that's it. That's what a good coach needs to do. The subtleties of that in part 1 around possibilities, I talk more about being authentic, so locating your inner values, how one changes, how well you adapt and lead, change, and finally tapping into your emotions. So much of what we do these days is intellect, thought-led, but a great coachee who's ready and coachable will also tap into their emotions and use them as signposts. So that's about assessing possibilities. The middle part of the sandwich, part 2, which is about perception. This is about generating curiosity about yourself, other people, organisations, whatever your context is. Also about, the second part here is about challenging yourself, supporting yourself and giving yourself a bit of time out. But particularly it's that challenge, because in coaching people often find it quite challenging because it is about some of the things I previously mentioned, your inner values, change and emotions. And finally, coaching is all about the question. It's not about the answer, it's about asking that question. So can an effective coachee work with questions and even better come up with their own questions? Not necessarily have the answer just yet, just ask the question. What does this mean to? Where do I need to go? What drives me? What's my plan? So that's the kind of middle part in the perception session. The final part then is around that performance. So obviously you have to do something about it, the bottom line of coaching. And that's about setting goals. So, what's your direction, where are you going, where are you headed? So some really clear ideas on goal setting. Secondly, the third part, second of 3 parts, here, is around that network. So the ability to change your network, to stop doing things, to no longer looking at that blog, finding other things, finding other people. So that network fundamentally changes as you change and personally develop, rather than holding on to those old habits that just don't serve you anymore. And finally, a big passion of mine is about energy, so you have more enthusiasm, more motivation for your previous mentioned goals, your network. So that has to be the outcome of coaching. So a good coachee, really the two bookends, if you like, is right. A, right at the start, be authentic, locate those values, that gives you that D for direction. And the final landing point is energy, that gives you that D for drive. So your energy to actually make that happen and take that into whatever context is applicable to you. Okay? So hopefully that gives you a bit of an overview of what it's all about. There's loads of other resources that I put together in terms of online programs, other postings on YouTube, etc., for you to look at in terms of chapters. You've got the book itself, bring this all alive in an online context. But that is really the summary of what the book, It's Not About the Coach, which I published only in 2013, is all about.